Welcome to American Education FM, everybody. I'm Dr. Sean Brooks. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. In this episode, I have a conversation with a listener of the show. And a number of years ago, they reached out to me and thanked me for the show and the information that I was providing, specifically also regarding the business of home learning and talking about Abeka.com and their homeschooling program and a number of other things. And it was very complimentary, and I was grateful for the email, and I'll never forget it. And we've been emailing ever since. And ironically enough, his name is also Sean, also spelled the exact same way. So basically, he and his family again started to witness the COVID hysteria and the behavior of the school employees in the schools where his daughters went to school at the time. And then he and his wife made the decision to basically say, no more. We're not doing this anymore. This is all nuts. Everybody's lost their minds, and we can do this on our own. Again, he lays it all out. The impact that it's had on his entire family, a number of different stories along the way of observations that he's made with other families, and a number of other things, of course, that took place throughout the entire COVID line, the years since then. And we hit on a lot of subjects here. But there are many takeaways, and certainly one of them is it's time to pull your children out. And as he says, if they can do it, anybody can do it. And he's right. The time is now. Here it is, August of 2026. There are still endless people sending their children back to the government meat grinder that is the American school system, to the same places that have abused those children year after year after year, with or without the COVID law in place. It still goes on, and it doesn't have to be that way. So certainly my thanks to Sean for joining us here and having this conversation. My thanks to his family as well. They've made great decisions throughout this process. There's no doubt about that. Give this conversation a listen, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for listening as always, and I will catch you on Wednesday. Having you on right now, I think is vitally important, like you said. What were the kinds of conversations that you and your family were having regarding, again, what you were seeing and then the decisions that you've had to make as a result?
So probably, 2020 was crazy for everybody, but I think it was late 2021 where everything was the emails from the school district on the rules. There was stuff like there was stuff like if an unvaccinated child is in close proximity to somebody that tests positive, that unvaccinated child is assumed to also be sick, and then they have to stay home for X number of days. And at that time, that's when I started kind of getting involved in contacting the superintendent, are we really doing this? That doesn't make any sense, Up to that point, we were just a typical family that just pretty much just the day-to-day, you work, you come home. We had the kids in daycare, 2 kids in daycare, both of us working, which I would not recommend at all to anybody at this point. It was a huge mistake. But I think my daughter was, so we ended up, quote unquote, coming down with, an illness. Whatever that was, we got tested, the PCR thing, which was a mistake. The school was really pushing that big at the time. So it was me first, and then the kids had like a sniffles or whatever, So my oldest had to be out of school for, I think it was 2 weeks or something like that.
Yeah.
The day she came back, this is where everything kind of blew up a little bit. The day she came back, she wanted to try out for basketball team. I think we can all remember being a kid. You just want to do stuff, and you're only a kid once. And so she came home, and she was really upset. And she said that they told her she can't play basketball because she's not vaccinated. And even as a kid, she knew that was ridiculous because she'd been playing gym class the whole time. And so I contacted the school and I was like, guys, that she just recovered from supposedly the illness that you want her vaccinated from. That doesn't make any sense. Why would she need to be vaccinated? And they said, you got to contact your pediatrician, talk to your pediatrician, but this is our requirement. We're not budging on this. So I think the big shift for us, as far as, how to view authority figures was my conversation with the pediatrician. It was mind blowing. As I asked her, first thing I said to her, where in your training does this say this is the right thing to do? If somebody recovers from the illness, do you immediately vaccinate him for that illness? And she couldn't answer that. She just started stammering and then she flipped the tables, kind of, how she knows, and, we don't know anything. And she said, it's not for the children, it's for everybody else. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? I'm like, what do you?
Wow.
It was really, really bizarre. And I was really upset because that was the first time, like I said, we did everything we were supposed to do. You're following the rules, you're doing, you're everything. And that was, you see your kid like that. And when they're that upset, so I wouldn't let it go. I was really kind of arguing with her a bit. And then I kept arguing with the school and everything. And they contacted me back. They were, the athletic director, they were, they understood. They said, I don't understand it either, but these are the rules and everything. And the pediatrician pretty much hung up on me. She's like, I gotta go, She's like, I can't talk about this anymore. So
how old was she, if you don't mind me asking? Both the pediatrician and, of course, what grade was your daughter in?
My daughter would have been in ninth grade at the time. So she just graduated. The pediatrician, I met her a while back. She's older, probably late 60s.
Gotcha.
But so she ended up, there was something I said. I wrote a letter to her. I remember I was so mad. And I thought I wasted my time with this. I sat all weekend and I wrote this letter to her. I mailed it over to her. I was just so disappointed with the advice she was giving people. If she's telling people this, because you were a teacher, right? Doesn't that defy 7th grade biology, right? Like vaccinating against what you're.
Yeah, even if you believe the vaccination story, which, again, when I taught school, I would have students ask me just kind of bluntly, they would just say, so, what do you think about vaccination? And, of course, this was back in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And I looked at them and I said, I am not a fan. And then I would always just tell them the story of the last shot that I took and how it almost killed me. And I'd say, if you're healthy, you shouldn't put anything in your body. Because there's nothing that you can put in your body, certainly from a medical standpoint, that's going to prevent an illness of some kind. So, yeah. And I just proved it to him with the story that I told. I said I was healthy. I took a flu shot. 48 hours later, I couldn't move.
Yeah. And I had a friend at the time. He had supposed COVID. And then somebody told him, I don't know, to get your taste back, take the shot or something. And then he got really, really sick. So, but yeah, up until that point, I honestly never really thought much about vaccination. I knew it wasn't for us. It just, we didn't want it, especially how hard everybody was pushing. We knew something was really strange about it.
Yeah.
And also, I think one of the last things I ever took from my doctor is probably 2004. He prescribed Vioxx, if you remember that. and it was for tennis elbow. And I remember watching the news, and I had the Vioxx, and they're like, "Oh, recall 60,000 people dead from Vioxx." FDA pulls it off. So I'm like, so I kind of, I had all that in the back of my head when this came out, but I'm kind of jumping around a bit. But anyway, whatever I said to the pediatrician, whatever the letter I wrote, she ended up sending a exemption for my daughter for basketball.
Wow.
But 6 months. It was 6 months. At 6 months, your natural ability to your immune system will shut down after 6 months.
Oh,
so,
wow.
So she sends the letter, and the school contacts me, and they're like, "Well, we just want you to know we got this. So we're gonna ask your daughter if she wants to try out." So at that point, I think they pulled her out of class and they brought her in, like, the main office, and they're like, "Your dad worked really hard to get you to try out for the team. Do you still want to try out for the team?" And she's like, "No, I'm not interested anymore." So, but that's kids. And I didn't even care that she didn't want to play anymore. I just wanted her to have the ability, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just if, but so that's, that was around that time. My youngest would have been in 5th grade. And then we started asking him, like, what's school like? How much are you actually learning there all day? And they pretty much told us that they were doing about an hour and a half, 2 hours tops, actual learning all day. That was it. It was just all in between stuff. It was just filling their head full of stuff, and they didn't really feel like they were learning anything. In the schools at the time, I don't know, every classroom had like CNN on. It was like the airport with the TVs, with the news,
Yeah.
And you got the death counter, you know what I mean? And it just, and they're badgering the kids. My daughter told me once she had the mask on in school, and she pulls it down to get a drink of water, and some teacher comes over, and he's on her for taking her mask down. He said something like, I still remember this, like, how does a screen door work in a submarine or something like that, he says to her. And she's just looking at him like, "Dude, you're freaking nuts. Just leave me alone. Like, I'm just getting a drink." But they were constantly doing that to the kids. It was just basically like just a trauma thing,
Yeah.
And I remember 9th grade, the one science teacher, I just kind of, all these are like bullet points, kind of, you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Moments. I remember one of the science teachers too, she just off the cuff, she just made a remark about how there is no God. There's no
wow.
God. Yeah, it was pretty wild. Then my youngest, I remember her telling me how rough gym class was with the running, like you're talking 90-degree days with the mask, and they make the kid, and they said if you take the mask down, you can't play, you can't participate. And some of the gym teachers would single out the the unvaccinated, the vaccinated kids. It was really wild, and I haven't thought about it in a while, like just actually saying it now. So basically,
let me ask you a quick question about that, just to dive a little deeper into that one issue there. When they would single out the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated, do you remember specifically what they would do?
Yeah, they would say raise your hand if you're vaccinated, And then some kids would lie, some wouldn't. And then the teacher would go on some story about a second cousin that got an infection from an unvaccinated person, they're the you know plague rats, sort of thing, and they're destroying the country and all this stuff. And I even had family members at the time, very close family members, sending me like political cartoons with people jumping off a cliff, yelling natural immunity and stuff. It was wild.
Wow.
That was my, perfectly honest, that was my father saying that stuff. So like every other day, I'm getting like a text or a news article from some healthy 40-year-old in Florida that got in a car accident, but COVID killed him, and it's like, it's just,
yeah,
it was wild. And I think, around that time, you're just, to be perfectly honest, you're just having a hard time living with yourself, like me, you know what I mean? Like sending your kids out into that environment. It was gut wrenching, and then I think it was at the high school we were, so ninth grade, around that time too, there was some kind of shooting or a bomb. It was a shooting threat, and there was some video going around on Facebook of the kids in the school freaking out, and they're barricading the doors in the school. And my daughter came back from that, and I think that was kind of the point. I'm like, how many, it's our job to be a parent, to protect as a parent. And I think at that point, I was just pretty much, I don't want to do this. I want to participate in this anymore. And then you start asking, you start talking to people, and they're telling you you're crazy. You can't do that. Your kids are going to be socially awkward. They're going to be this, they're going to be that. And then you're like, you come back and you're like, well, prisoners are socialized,
right.
It's like, if it's a bad environment, do you really want your kids there, And so I think it would have been, I think I probably discovered your show long before that. And I don't know how I was probably getting in my car ready for work, and I just like ended up doing some search on Spotify, and I like the music in the beginning. I like the logo, and it kind of, and I just started listening to your show, and you advocated homeschooling. And I remember I have family in Georgia that I haven't seen in a really long time, and they've been homeschooling forever. I was reaching out to them. We don't know anybody around here that we do now, but at the time we didn't know anybody. Because if you can homeschool in New York, you can homeschool anywhere, because they make it a challenge here. But we, started looking into Rebecca, my cousin. She had her kids on it for a while. And then, what we found out is a lot of people, they either kind of patch together different programs, that sort of thing for homeschooling, or they just pick one really good structured program. And that's what we did with Rebecca. We really liked the structure. We felt it was very organized. So yeah, we just decided to, take the plunge with that. And looking back, it wasn't very hard. The hardest part is just you're the only one doing it. You don't know. It's the unknown,
Sure. But I suppose, like anything, you start something new, and it, of course, is daunting at first and can be that way, and it looks big, but then the longer you're in it, the smaller it gets and the easier it gets.
Yeah, it was, So I guess I should back up a little bit. So around that time, we decided, my wife was gonna stay home with the kids, and her job, they were awful with the COVID stuff. I mean, they uninvited her to the Christmas party.
What did she do for a living?
It was like a realty, they like property management.
Gotcha.
So she was in the accounting department, but they were trying to get that like 100% compliance thing, probably something the government was offering to all the companies. So they were really, really hammering people. I mean, they were sending emails. The emails they were just awful. Then they had the Christmas party, and then they said, "Oh, now you can't go." And I remember her; she drove home crying and calling me, and I'm just like, "This is crazy. This is like the Twilight Zone. The whole thing, And she had people at her job. They would get like, be like, "Oh, such and such is out. They got some kind of clot in their lung or something," and everybody's just like, "Oh, it's nothing." Or they would have some mysterious illness around that time. Oh, it was one of the guys she would work with. He would take the next day off after his booster.
Wow.
He would tell the owners of the company, "I need tomorrow off. I need Monday off because I'm getting my booster Sunday." I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It was just, it was crazy. But yeah, once we started, I got to tell you, the feeling was such a great feeling, because you had to let the school district know that you're pulling your kids out. And I had to send an email to the superintendent, and I'm like, and he knows who I am, because I was going back and forth with the stuff they were sending to the parents. It was just awful. It was like they had some kind of board meeting about pretty much how they were going to promote the Pfizer shot, because it's an approved shot. Like that was going to be the district's, like this stuff sounds highly illegal to me at this point. I think it was at the time. But I remember reading the email, and at the time it was emergency use authorization. It wasn't approved. And I'm like, man, this is like lawsuit freaking, this is crazy, this stuff that they're doing. But that feeling, sending them that email that says, "We're pulling our kids out. This is notice." It was a great feeling. But we ended up doing the accredited program, Rebecca accredited program, which is so the kids, my oldest ended up doing it 10, 11, 12. My youngest, 6, 7, and 8. So we get hard copy materials. You get the DVD. We ended up doing the DVDs and the hard copy, the books and stuff. So we got boxes and boxes of books and the DVDs. You got to give the DVDs back. But we decided to do that just because, if the internet would go down or whatever, they can still, learn and everything. I think there's other options where you don't need that stuff. You can do everything online. But at the time, I want to say roughly, Sean, it's like the time it was like $1,400 to $1,800 a kid with the accredited program. You can get some of the books used. Maybe it'll be cheaper. I think there's a Facebook group my wife was telling me about where you can get some used materials. But with this program, you get a report card, all that stuff. It's very, very structured. You get, and the kids, well, as you're doing your own thing. If it's If it's a rainy day, maybe you double up the days. If it's a nice day, you go out and walk the dog or something, or go out in a park. You do whatever, but you're not stuck in a building with a bell telling you when to go to the next, telling you when to eat, telling you when you can go outside and get some fresh air.
Permission to go to the bathroom.
Yeah. Oh, the permission to go to the bathroom. I forgot about that one. So they ended up doing some new program over there where you had to, on your Chromebook, when you had to go to the bathroom, you have to log into your Chromebook and you have to ask for permission that way. And then somebody responds to you through the Chromebook and says when you can go. And I forgot all this stuff. And then there's a town Facebook page, and the parents were on there, and they were complaining about the girls, my daughter can't hold it for an hour and a half. You know what I mean? Like an hour. If she's got to go, she's got to go. And this whole thing about waiting for permission, and then the craziness with just the gender confusion was just in high gear. You have just kids coming in one day, and then the kids were like, I'm not Tommy anymore. I'm Toby or whatever. I'm this, I'm that, and you got to call me this. It was like, and then the teachers trying to keep up with the names. I guess the teachers, it was wild.
Yeah, shit.
I'll
tell you too, that was the Trojan horse aspect of, again, the entire COVID lie, specifically when it came to school technology. I mean, when you had to start logging in to go to the bathroom, that's when all these companies started rolling out all these products where, again, teachers are walking around with these lanyards around their necks that have a card, and then they have to swipe it into a machine. And then, like you said, the student has to log in, say when they're leaving, teacher has to approve it or disapprove it, and then they have to be back within a certain amount of time. And then, of course, if they're not back by a certain amount of time, then they're not allowed to go the next time. I mean, it's just insane. But why, again, anybody was even thinking that made any sense whatsoever is beyond me. I mean, no one in the business was putting their foot down. At least apparently. I mean, I'm sure some people did, and they probably got fired or they quit for insubordination. But, yeah, it's just nuts.
Yeah, there was a couple teachers around here. There was one teacher my daughter actually liked, and he was her health teacher, and he would tell the kids, he would tell them stuff like, if you can't pronounce the ingredient on the bottle, like, don't take it. And then I would say like the same stuff. And she's like, you really like my health teacher, and then he got let go. And I tried finding out what happened to him, and the superintendent, he didn't get back to me. I wanted to know what happened to him, and they got rid of him. There was another guy, I remember it was on the news. He made a stand. They got rid of him. He said this whole thing is crazy. The way you're treating these people, the way, this is not how, this whole medical thing, none of this makes sense. And they let him go. But I think, sorry if I'm kind of all over the place. Can you hear me okay too? You got good reception?
Man, I'm good. Keep going.
Okay. This was the tipping point. I asked my wife about this. She said she kind of remembered it, but I remember what she said. And there was some kind of, I can't remember what it was. There was some kind of, they had some celebration for the kids or something at the one school over here. And it was it was on the tail end. The COVID thing was kind of, it was there, but it was kind of on its way out. And so it was supposed to be about the kids. Picture a big old school, elementary school auditorium. I think it was something with the middle school. And we were all there. And I'm sitting there and I see all the characters, the people that are writing these emails and stuff and they're making these speeches. I wish I I wish I recorded it because it was brutal. And I was sitting there listening to them all. And it was like, this is supposed to be about the kids. This is all about the kids. This whole thing that we're doing, everything we're doing in this life is about the kids, And all they talked about was how compliant the kids were. They didn't talk about the kids' achievements. They didn't talk about, how great the kids are, people, they just talked about how compliant they were, how they kept their 6 feet, how they had their masks, how they did what they were told. And it made me like sick to my stomach. And I'm sitting there and I'm like squirming in my chair and I'm looking around and I'm like, is anybody else feeling this? And it was up to that point where I was kind of getting more and more vocal, and then people were kind of distancing themselves from me because I was really getting really frustrated with everything. So I didn't say anything. And we're driving home and my wife just says to me, she goes, I didn't like the way they were talking about the kids. And I'm like, thank God, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is not right. Like this whole thing, so yeah,
they're so brainwashed they don't hear themselves talk anymore. They really don't. The employees within the business, they just don't hear the way that they sound when they talk about other people's children. And of course, you've heard me bring it up on the show probably a million times, but I mean, they call them their kids.
Yeah.
And it's wait a minute, you're government and they're not your kids. They're other people's kids. They're supposed to be your students. And like you said, it's all about compliance to them. It's not about health. It's not about learning, not about achievement.
And yeah, so I think that was the last straw, I think, there. And we're just like, you know what, we just got to do this. And I had a lot of people telling me, you're going to regret this. You're going to regret this. A lot of people were telling me. And we signed up for everything. We were really surprised how easy everything was. The materials started coming in the mail. We're rocking and rolling. We're like, oh, this is, we got one of those like little portable DVD player where it's got the TV screen on it,
Sure.
Like a little one. But I tell you, as parents, we looked pretty good when the first day of school rolled around, Sean.
So what are we talking about now? Are we talking 2021 or 2022?
So we're talking, 2023-ish. So it would have been the first day school started without us there. So yeah, 2023. And so all, my daughter's friends and stuff, they're still in communication with her at that point. And I think I might have even sent you this when this happened, actually. The first day of school at the middle school that my youngest was supposed to go to, they had some kind of bomb threat or some kind of shooting threat, and the kids were stuck in the school bus for like 3.5 hours.
Wow.
So here, so my daughter was like, they're young, she was young, she's still young, but she probably didn't understand what was really happening. And then all her friends are like, yeah, our first day of school, we're targeted for death. We're stuck in the school bus all day, half the day. And it was just crazy. I still can't even believe. But anyway, we were looking pretty good at that point. First day of school.
Yeah,
right?
That's validation right there.
Yeah. So we, we start getting into it. Long story short, anybody out there listening, anybody can do this. You guys can do it. You could, anybody can do it. If we can do it, you can too, because we didn't know a single person around here that was doing it. And then you start, from my point of view, I'm not here, day to day, but you come home and you start seeing different things, different pattern, like the mood changes. The kids are, they're really, really close now. My two kids, they're like a gang, man. You don't want to mess with them. And my wife, the three of them, they're they're so close. They do stuff during the day. They love it, and it was, I will say that I think if anybody's out there considering doing this, I will say that I think having pets at home helps too. I think a little bit, just kind of like it kind of breaks up the day, and it was around that time we had chickens. We just got chickens a little before that, so we kind of started already kind of going off the reservation. We ended up building a chicken run. It was a huge thing. The kids were involved, taking care of the chickens, and so we started doing that. And then we ended up getting a couple cats, but we didn't, but we were missing. We didn't have a dog, so and I'm like, I want, I'm picturing this big, strong dog, scary looking guy protecting my family, when I'm not home. And I said to my wife, this is a true story. Some people don't believe it, but I said to her, you know what? I want a male German Shepherd named Maximus. I said, I think that would be really good for our family. And then, so we're talking like probably a couple weeks in the homeschooling at that point, maybe a month. It was really, I hear him now.
I heard him.
Yeah, so we're talking at that point. It was probably a couple weeks into it, maybe a couple months. And I want a male German Shepherd named Maximus. That's who I want home with my family, And sure enough, they found a male German Shepherd named Maximus in a shelter 2 weeks later, a local shelter, purebred. He apparently some family got a divorce or something, and they couldn't. We don't think he was trained. He's pretty wild. And he was in this shelter, and supposedly people brought him back because he was too wild. He didn't like other dogs. But he liked cats, and we had cats, so we brought him home. And he was very quiet at first, maybe because he's just kind of obviously traumatized from being in a shelter for 6 months, But man, he kind of slid right in there. He's kind of my youngest dog now, growing up with him, and my oldest, she had a shepherd, who passed away a couple years back. So, but yeah, so Mr. Max, he's home, letting everybody know when there's somebody in the driveway or something's going around the yard. And, yeah, it's, I would say my marriage has improved too, if I'm perfectly honest with you. And I think that has a lot to do with us not being spread so thin, like as far as running with the 2 jobs. I mean, we did the 2 jobs, 2 kids in daycare, which is just insane when I think about it. And I see people now going through it. I just want to pull them aside and like kind of shake them, like that scene in like, remember Airplane? The woman's like hysterical and they're like, everybody's lined up to.
Yep.
I just want to like shake them and be like, dude, what are you doing, man?
Yep.
I'm like, take your 2 salaries, take the tax off that, take what you're paying to daycare, add it all up, see if it's worth it. It's not going to be worth it for you. You're going to pay other people to raise your children, and not know what's going on with them. And then to just offload them all over again back into the school system. It's just, do we really need those 50 million streaming services and the next new iPhone and all that stuff? You don't need any of that stuff. It's like, they're just distractions, yeah. So here we are. The kids, they do really well on the standardized tests. My daughter, my oldest, just graduated. Rebecca has I think I told you about this. Rebecca has a in-person graduation in Florida.
Yep.
Pensacola, Florida, at Christian College. Pensacola Christian College. And I thought it was awesome. I thought it was really well done. It was very, very professional and organized. It was great. And there's kids there from all over the world. It was really friendly and stuff. There was, at one point, they asked the kids that have been on Rebecca from the beginning, from kindergarten on, to stand up. And we were like, whoa, a bunch of, talking like hundreds of kids or 100 kids maybe or something stood up from all over the world. So it's a solid program. It's got kind of that old school feel to it. I think it's been around since like the 70s. The DVDs, the teachers, they, I thought this was pretty good. They say a prayer for our world leaders in the program, which I thought was great because they probably need all the prayers,
Sure.
Yeah, to make the right decisions, but it's a good program. We have no complaints with it. We're going to stick with it. We're not, at this point, we're not really interested in the kind of jump around. Some people can do that. They have a good, like yourself, you'd probably be able to do something like that, like patch together different programs. But this one is very organized and, and here we are. It's, and then you start seeing the way the kids view the world differently. It's like what is the movie, Sean, with the Roddy Piper glasses, It's like
They Live.
Yeah, it's like they're kind of, it's almost like it's almost like a record skipping, you listen to a record and everything's kind of, the music's like, and then all of a sudden you hear if anybody out there even knows what a record sounds like anymore, or like, or the record skip, and it's almost like you're breaking the cadence, or like the everything, it kind of rattles you a little bit, and then you can kind of see things a little clearer. The kids. So I was watching. So my daughter, she said something. What did she say to my wife one day? This would have been probably a couple months into homeschooling. Little things that they say. She said to my wife. So she would have been. So you're talking a sixth grader at this point, right? So she said to my wife, "Why is it that in all the Disney movies, the parents die?"
It's insightful.
And sure enough, fast forward, we're watching. There's a documentary. I think it's called Out of the Shadows. So you guys, anybody listening, you could probably catch it somewhere on Rumble or BitChute or whatever. And it's about Hollywood. It's basically about all of the crap in Hollywood and how it's just like, it's just rotting your brain and stuff. And they talk about that in that documentary. And then I'm watching it with my wife. She says to me, she's like, "Yeah, our daughter just said that to me." And I'm like, "Oh, I never even you don't think when you're a kid, you're taking in all this stuff, and it's like creating these little. I mean, you tell me, what do you think? I mean, you're getting these little traumas, and it's just a form of what do you think? Like a mind control, sort of. You just become. You do it long enough, and you don't even recognize it. It's just there, and then you just kind of fall in line. Is that? I mean, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, first of all, Out of Shadows is a must watch for everybody, I think. Yeah, I saw that when it came out, and is very well done. Um, there are people who are more well versed in those movies than me, but I know that over the years, like you said, if you and like your daughter said, if you examine those movies, even as far back as Bambi,
Yeah.
the movie kicks off with a death, and then one of the last ones I saw was the movie Up, and at the
Uh,
beginning of that movie, the lead male character, who's this older gentleman, his wife dies. And then, of course, he's living in the same house that he lived in with his wife, and he refuses to move. And then, of course, all these corporations build their buildings around his house, and he refuses to move. I mean, it's very sad right out of the gate. And I'm saying to myself again, as I was watching it, I'm saying out loud, what child watches this? I mean, immediately out of the gate, you're hit with feelings of existentialism, if that's a term. But I mean, it's just existential thought and existential intelligence right out of the gate, which for a child at the moment, what you would think would upset them. And like you said, traumatize them. And then, of course, then the movie becomes this giant adventure that has, ups and downs and emotional roller coasters. And again, you think back on something like Bambi. Bambi was no different. But yeah, I think the last one of those kinds of movies I ever saw was The Grinch, the Pixar version of that. And again, it was upsetting because in that story, of course, it's portrayed that the Grinch is the bad guy. When it turns out, he's actually not. He's trying to rid the entire. He's depressed clearly, and he's depressed because he's watching all of these adults be materialistic and surround themselves with their kids and their materialism and how all of that brings them happiness. And he's trying to. He takes all the shit away from them and steals it, not because he wants it, but because he's also trying to teach them that materialism isn't the way. So people, again, they lose that. They sort of don't even see that message in the movie because they're just like, well, he's ruining Christmas because he's taking all their materialistic things away. And it's like, well, he takes it all away and then he realizes that when he has it, he's not happy. So then he gives it all back and then he ends up, being happy with everybody. But again, it's this massive emotional roller coaster of a movie, but it's all of that's done on purpose. I mean, like you said, it is done to traumatize people and sort of normalize them into that.
yeah, it's and even when the kids were in school, they would come back to me and they would talk about like race, pretty much, like how they're basically by focusing so much on race, they're creating racism. Like they're even kids, like these are kids in sixth grade, seventh, eighth grade. They know this,
Yeah.
the way they're pushing it down their throat, and they're like, and the kids are just like, can we just learn a subject? Like, can we really just,
Right.
It's you hear him up there? Jeez,
Max agrees.
yeah, but yeah, it's just it's wild. But yeah, and then now my daughter, my youngest, her best friend, she's doing it back now. Her parents pulled them out of, I don't know the details of it, but pulled her out of school a couple years ago. They were on some other program that they were having a hard time with, and we told them about it back, and now they're on that and they love it.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so she's got a best friend 2 blocks away that's on the program. And yeah, I mean, it's not all, they're teenagers, there's it's not all daisies and you know what I mean? Like you come home sometimes but you know, stuff happens just growing up and stuff. But, you know, I don't know, just anybody out there, you can do it. You really can. Just, in your, you know, your kids will thank you for it in the long run, I think. And something I forgot to mention because I'm jumping around so much is I think it was around that time we were kind of on the fence about it, if we were going to do it or not, Sean. And then I started getting the emails from the district about the shots that they need to go back to school. These were the basically the New York standard shots. And New York is a little different because we don't have a we don't have a religious exemption anymore. I think they got rid of that around 2019-ish or so. So if you go across the border, Massachusetts or whatever, and if you don't want something, you can just file a religious exemption, and then you can go to school. But I started getting the emails and started actually really paying attention this time, to be perfectly honest. And that sounds horrible when I say that out loud, but it's the truth, because you're not thinking, you're just doing what everybody else is doing. You're doing what your parents did. You're doing, you know what I mean? Like you're falling in line, and then you start thinking about these things more. And I remember getting these emails, and they were threatening. The tone was definitely threatening. Like, you need to do this by such and such time. I think it was like the DTaP shot or something, you know, for I think my youngest to get into sixth grade or whatever, or something like that. And then I'm like, well, what is the DTaP shot? You know, then you start looking into it. You start looking into they already had it. Why do they need another one? You know, and it's like, oh, you need, you know, and then but looking into that stuff. And then that was pretty wild. I don't remember anybody ever knocking on my door in 2019 asking me what I thought of the removing religious exemptions. You know, I mean, if you're not paying attention to that stuff, I mean, you don't even think about it. You know, maybe I don't want my kid to have something that was made from aborted fetal cells. You know,
right?
Shouldn't I have the choice to? Maybe my kid doesn't need something with aluminum in it. You know, I mean, it's wild. The more you think about it, and we ended up calling that same pediatrician because we needed like routine physicals because my daughter does a camp. My youngest is in gymnastics, so she does a camp. She's actually there now. This is her third year doing a camp in Pennsylvania. It's like a big to-do. She goes away for the week. They have people from all over the world, coaches, all her friends are there. So we need just a general sign-off from our pediatrician. And initially when I called and I talked to the receptionist, so I'm like, well, how do you guys feel about, people that don't want to, with the vaccination schedule? What if we decide to go off that a little bit? And the receptionist pretty much made it sound like they're going to throw us out. So here we are scrambling. There is some truth to that. A lot of places will throw you out. But my wife ended up handling it from there. And my wife just went in for the physical. And then when the pediatrician brought it up, she just said, well, if you give me the packet, if you give me the information, if you give me, informed consent, we'll take it home and we'll review it and we'll get back to you. And when she did that, she did hand me I don't think they do this to parents, but they did hand me a whole page of like side effect stuff. There was a whole thing on there, and then there was a link. And I'm like, yeah, we're not interested in this. We're not doing this. So we only have to go back. The last 3 years now, we've only had to go back that one time, once a year. And the pediatrician does the same spiel. how come you don't want this? How come you don't want this? She needs this, she needs this. And we're just like, she's not gonna be able to get into camp. She's not gonna be able to get into camp. And we're like, yeah, she'll be able to get in. We went every year we've been doing it, and she's there now. So it's just wild how different states, how it just varies. You just go across the border and then you can do something different.
Is that the same pediatrician from earlier?
Yeah. So we haven't found, it's tough, man, to try to, that's the part that could be kind of scary for parents. Because in this area, because they remove the religious exemptions, I mean, that's how they make all their money, all the pediatricians. So we got a list of some people, but we haven't really made that switch because thankfully, if you don't inject the child with poison, they don't get sick anyway. You know what I mean? Like, you don't, so it's kind of like if you take care of yourself and you're going to be okay. And, but I actually had a friend, while like I said, I'm jumping around a bit, so my apologies, but like,
You're good.
It's a lot to kind of, when I was telling that school stories, like I'm getting like chills talking about it because I can remember how angry I was. But around this time when we were ready to make or it may have been we've already made the decision, then a lot of things started connecting for me. A lot of patterns started coming up, and I knew a guy I worked with. This is awful. Like, he brought his, I think his son was like 1 or 2. They brought him in for a routine measles shot, and he lived in New York at the time. Brought the kid in for the routine measles shot. Brought the kid home, and then when their son opened his eyes were cross-eyed, so they couldn't figure out what was going on with him. So they brought him to a neurologist, and this guy basically said one of the side effects for the measles shot is brain inflammation. He said what's happening is that his brain is actually pushing against his skull, and it's actually turning his eyes in. So at that point, they're like furious, their parents, and they go to the pediatrician. Pediatrician flipped out. How dare you suggest, that this could be harmful? Gave him a bill and basically threw him out. And I don't know if he still has complications to this day. This is probably like 3 years ago now, but when I ask him about him, he just says that when he gets sick, the eyes kind of cross in. So I don't know if it's like an immune system thing, but they ended up moving out of state. They moved to Virginia. And they said in Virginia that everybody's they use the religious exemption. So they moved out of state. I have a feeling it's probably because they had 4 boys, 4 kids. I mean, could you imagine going through that? How horrifying that would be, going through that with your child, and then bringing another child in like a year later to get his dose of whatever it is, 75 something to your 18. Could you imagine?
No. And it sounds like meningitis. I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but that's the dangerous part about all of those shots is and then of course there's a meningitis shot, which is funny because they say, well, take this shot to prevent meningitis, but they don't say what causes meningitis. Again, it's an inflammation of the myelin sheath around your brain and spinal cord. So when that becomes inflamed, which it's not supposed to unless you've been poisoned, no one gets meningitis just from walking around. I mean, even a typical illness from food poisoning doesn't cause meningitis, but you get it from getting injected. And the meningitis shot, along with what you said earlier, the measles shot, or even the DTaP will do the same thing. But that's that doctor's reaction to that The how dare you suggest that the shot was what caused this. That's not quote unquote science.
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you rule out every single. Where was the kid in the last 24 hours? Did they have a medical intervention?
Exactly.
It's just we're just like suspending thought, like just kind of it's wild. I mean, so that happened, and then I ran into, man, this is an awful story. I ran into a guy I used to go to high school with. I hadn't seen him in years, and I met his family and his youngest boy. He's autistic, nonverbal, with the diaper. He's got to be 18 now or something. You just see he's just running around screaming in pain.
Yeah.
And I asked, I'm like, so, do you guys have any idea? I just got to talk to him. And he basically said that what they thought what happened to him was the Hep B shot. They thought it was the Hep B shot that did it to him. So, and for what, right? I mean, does a newborn need, is a newborn, like nobody approached us and asked us if our children were going to be prostitutes or inject heroin or drug users, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, and then their life, you see those documentaries. There's a new one, I think, with Del Bigtree, An Inconvenient Truth. I don't know if you've seen that one.
I have.
Yeah, where the parents, they're talking about how the kid gets up in the night and he's rubbing poop all over the walls and he's screaming his head off and the two parents are fighting each other. And the person responsible for this is, you know what I mean? There's nobody responsible for this. There's nobody it's just basically their lives are, you just ruined a life, and then it's wild. And another, I would say, like a connecting kind of piece with this too, Sean, this is like the worst out of all of them, where it just clicked with me one day. Do you remember SADS? Remember they were talking about SADS during the whole COVID thing?
Yes.
Remember, like sudden adult death syndrome?
Yep.
And they had all the news articles about how being healthy is no longer, you could just drop dead. You could be a 20-year-old and you could be walking around and just drop dead. And I remember how they were rolling that out, and I was like, SADS. I'm like, where? This sounds like. And then I thought to myself, oh, I remember SIDS. I remember sudden infant death syndrome, because 18 years ago, when we moved here, our neighbor's son had a kid. So this is a gut wrenching. I still remember the funeral was like the worst. They had a kid, and my daughter and him were roughly the same age. And one day, it was around those first months, where you're bringing your kid to the pediatrician and they're doing the shots, and all that stuff, because they were kind of both probably on the same schedule, my daughter and their grandson, our neighbor's grandson. And he ended up dying. And came home one day, the neighbors were everybody was upset, and I'm like, what happened? And the grandmother at the time, she was taking care of the child. She's in my kitchen, and we're feeding our child, like, there's our kid here, the same age as her grandson who just died. And she's just crying hysterically. She's like, I killed my grandson. I killed my grandson. And we're like, you didn't kill your grandson. She said that she walked away for a minute, and then he had like something happened to him, and then he passed. Something that he was having some kind of reaction to something, and he passed. And then I saw the father, and big dude, roofer, awesome guy. family. He basically, when they told him in the hospital that his son passed, he passed right out. He fell face forward right in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
face plant right in the hospital. And I mean, just getting chills, just even thinking about it. And then here I am. I think I was listening to your show, or maybe Jesse's show, and Dr. Robin was on there, and she was talking about how during COVID, about how because everything was shut down, parents weren't bringing their kids in for their routine shots, and about how the SIDS counts dropped almost to like zero.
Yeah.
And she was saying something like that. And then right then it was like that somebody hit you upside the head with a bat, and it's like, oh, you don't know, but that's probably what happened to him, because they ended up doing an autopsy and all this stuff, and they said they couldn't find anything wrong with him. And I remember the father, he remember him standing in my yard, and he's like crying, and he's like, I wish they would have just found something, because my mom blames herself. And I remember we went to the funeral and everything, and it was just being the kid was like a couple months old, if that, or something. It was brutal. But yeah, so we're
You know what? Let me add to that real quick. There was, because it's in the same wavelength. It was one of the things, again, that a pediatrician down the street from me said, and he was bouncing around. He was bouncing around to at least a couple, at least 2 school board meetings around the time when I gave a speech, and he spoke before me at the one where I did. But I'll never forget what he said also, and he said the exact same thing in a Indiana school just across the border from where I live. And he basically said, yeah, he goes, the masks must be working because I'm not seeing any patients, and I'm not seeing any respiratory illnesses among any of my patients, so the masks must be working. And I immediately thought to myself, no, you dumbass, they're not coming to your office because it's summertime and there's no need to, and they're not coming to your office and getting injected. That's why you're not seeing any respiratory illnesses. That's why you're not seeing any side effects of any illnesses among some of your patients, because you're not poisoning them, because they're not around. They're not coming to you. So it was astounding that they would put the emphasis and the credit into the mask wearing as to why their patients weren't ill, specifically children. And I'm saying, well, maybe they, I don't know, didn't get the shots that year that they were originally lined up to get, or they've figured it out by now, and they've just learned that pediatricians in your office is not a good idea. And again, the irony of that guy is that part of his family's been wiped out as a result of the shots. Now, would he blame that? Probably not. But that leads me to something else too, if you don't mind, because first of all, you mentioned it earlier, and just spend a second on this particular question if you can, but you said, of course, that New York makes it difficult for homeschooling. Is there, in New York, do you have to tell your local zip code public school area what program you're using, or do you just have to email them every year and say, we're teaching them all of the subjects, have a nice day kind of thing?
Yeah, actually, I guess when I say that, it's not entirely true, but no, actually, you just send them. You send them. This is what I'm going to do. You don't tell them which program. I don't believe I'm pretty sure you don't have to tell them that, and you just have to tell them how many hours you're spending on a certain subject, that sort of thing. The one thing, when I say that, I guess I mean, that there's nobody else doing it. So that can be kind of like, that can be difficult for some people. It wasn't for us. We were fine. We were already kind of on the outs at that point. A lot of people you kind of look for allies, or you look for, you're at a soccer game with another dad, and you're trying to feel them out, like, what do you think about this? You think this is right? You think a kid should just be able to change their gender overnight and then tell a teacher? I mean, this seems kind of crazy, and then you just find out that most people, I think they're good people at heart, but everybody's just running and distracted, trying to make ends meet, and they can't really just string a thought together to think about anything other than what they're being told. It's like that. What's the line in the Truman Show where he says they simply accept the reality that they're presented?
Yep.
It's like, this is it, and you don't even question it. You're born into the world, your parents do something, and then this is what you got to do. This is what you got to do. And once you go off that, I think it takes a little bit of to kind of break through that. But once you do, you're like, it's not a big deal. But one thing New York is a stickler on, they won't let the kids play school sports. So, like, my daughter wanted to try out for flag football. She had a friend over at the high school. She really wanted to do it, and they, if you go online now, if you look, the legal jargon, why it says you can't do it, it's like you need to be it says something like a full-fledged member of the school district. And I'm like, trying to get the point across, our kids are in school, we pay taxes, they pay school taxes. My daughter can't play flag football because of why? Tell me the reason why. And they don't have a reason other than because if they let you do it, then everybody's going to want to do it. Nobody's going to want to go to school. It's like, I can still do but other states, I think, are different. Other states allow you to do it.
Yeah.
So, but
well, let me ask you about this too. Of course, last week you had Anthony Fauci testify and plead the fifth on every single question that he was asked. And rightfully so, all of the memories of all of what everybody has experienced, certainly over the last 6 years, just came flooding back for a great deal of people. And then there's some people still putting their head in the sand, and other people are defending him clearly. And then there's plenty of individuals in the middle who are like, wait a minute, what did I do to myself? We've been lied to this whole time. Why is it that somebody would plead the fifth on all of this? And then, of course, there's the group of individuals who are trying to warn people about this from the get-go, and there's some validation there. But what are your thoughts on his testimony and everything that went down?
So I'm not fully up to speed on it. I was actually watching a little bit of it before I gave you a call, and I think they say he wrote like notes on his like personal computer or something, like he had a diary. I don't know what's real, but didn't he have a side effect from the shots or something like that? And he didn't tell anybody or something.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah. I believe it. I still remember trying to convince people. Remember the CEO, was it Borla? I think it was his name. I remember him. They asked him flat out, "Did you get this?" And he's like, "Nope, I didn't get it." I remember the Tetros or whatever his name is, the health organization. They asked him the same thing. "Did you get this?" "No, I didn't get it." Let's save my dose for the poor countries that need it. And the list goes on and on. It's like and I remember, man, people get so fired up over this too. Like it's just, we're tribal, by nature. And they're like, if you're not going to participate in this, like I can't be your friend anymore. I can't know you. And I remember at the time, I was like, man, there's got to be a way I can like just talk some sense to these people. And now when I look back, I mean, if you do just a general search, like who has the largest criminal fine in U.S. history, pretty sure it's Pfizer that's still going to come up. It's like 2.3 billion or something.
Yep, makes sense.
So it's like, would you have Al Capone do your taxes? like, what do you,
Yeah.
it's just, it's just crazy. But I think a lot of people, they just say, well, these things can't be real. Otherwise, it would be on TV. You know what I mean? They would be like, well, the TV would inform me the correct thing to do. So what you're saying can't be real. And we had family members who I loved dearly that, we couldn't go to their house during that time. And I remember thinking to myself, like, if you really believe in the product, you're protected. Why does it matter if you're, what was the saying? Like, it's the only product in the history of the world that everybody needed to take it for it to work. It's like,
Yeah.
it was wild, and it was just the messaging. It was the Fauci's. It was the, it was the, if anybody's they're a terrorist or they're evil, like the Borla would go on there and say that these people are spewing hate and stuff. And it's like, and we're mentioning, I guess, people's reactions to that same family I told you about, where the grandson passed away. The grandmother ended up passing away shortly after that, probably from a broken heart, probably from just her only grandchild, just losing a grandchild at that point. So they ended up moving out. And then a new family moved into the same house, and a couple kids around the same age as my kids and everything. And, there's a new family from out of town, from a different state, doesn't know anybody. Our yard at the time, we had this like play set with the swings and the slide for, young kids and everything. And my daughter says to her, hey, do you want to come over on playing the swings? And the daughter, I mean, this is a fifth grader. So, it had to come from the top. It had to come from the parents. And she says, are you vaccinated? Is your family vaccinated? And my daughter's just like, no. She's like, and then she just didn't say anything. And she never came over.
Wow.
It's just, and then I asked my daughter, I go, did you ever actually see that kid's face? She said that the whole time they were in school, she never once saw her face. Even when the masks weren't required, she never saw her face. And the kids would be at the bus stop with the masks on. And it was just wild, man. Like, it's just, I think back at that science teacher, with saying there's no God and everything. Well, you have a God. That's your TV. That's your, the Fauci in the white coat. That's who you're worshiping. The sitting at dinner with the Fauci prayer candle or whatever, and just listening to the news. And we're in this mess because we got people that don't want to comply. And I had a lot of people in my life saying the same thing. It was, we're in this mess because of you people. And it's just, well, long story short, man, I'm thankful for COVID. I'm not, I don't wish any, the harm on the people. A lot of people were tortured with everything, but I'm thankful for the experience to learn from it. And I think in the end, kind of that's what it was there for. It was like, how much ridiculousness are people going to actually accept? Let's just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And I think that's what they did. And a lot of people are just, I mean, yeah, so that's, and my oldest, I don't know if this is a homeschooling, Sean, but I suspect it's probably a combination of a lot of things. But I don't know many kids that, as soon as she was able to work, she started working, doing the homeschooling at the same time. And because she was able to adjust her hours with homeschooling, she was able to work more. and she saved up for a car on her own, paid for her first car in cash. I don't know many 16-year-olds that do that.
That's kick ass.
It didn't come from me. Like, I didn't say anything. I didn't even know she did that.
Right.
I'd like, I mean, I'm learning every day. There's a lot of things I could do different around here and stuff. But something's going on. And I think when you're out of these environments that are just, I don't think the people in there are, are bad people. I think they're good meaning people. I just think that I think the group think and the go along, get along sort of thing is just really dangerous. I mean, people, sometimes you just got to say, no, this is enough. This isn't right. This isn't, for the record, this is wrong. And I remember I went off like on a rant one day. Something came through from my school, from the superintendent. I don't know where the email is, but remember at the time, that's how I felt. And I just let him have it. I just blasted him. I told him about the Vioxx, put in the email, the Vioxx story. I put a link in there. I'm like, you guys, what you're doing here. I think that superintendent actually ended up resigning. I don't know, in the last couple of years or so, but I'm totally out of the loop on what's going on over there now. But yeah, I mean,
I bet the turnover rate is huge. Has to be.
Yeah, and I'll share this story with you too. I know a guy, pastor's son, and he told me that one of the guys at his church is a teacher in my school district, and he homeschools his kids. So, I mean, what does that tell everybody?
Yep.
So there's something going on, and there's a lot of weird things, what's in the world today, though, because like you walk in these schools too, and just when you're there, only 15, 20 minutes, and you're noticing things. I couldn't imagine being there all day. One thing that's big around this area, I don't know if it's common everywhere, but they're not teaching kids how to tell time anymore. The kids don't know how to read an analog clock. So what they're doing is they're putting digital clocks in. And it's bizarre. It's freaking so crazy. And then I ask them, I'm like, well, why don't you just teach the kids how to tell time? And they say, well, some kids, it almost sounds like they're just so far gone, they don't even want to address the problem. So they're putting digital clocks in. And there was one school district I was in, there was an analog and a digital, and I asked them why they have both. And they said, one's for the kid that can tell time and one's for the kid who can't tell time. What are your thoughts on that? Have you ever heard that before?
I have. And unfortunately, that is sort of, it's behaviorally, what would you call it? It's emblematic of the way that the business operates. That you don't, at least it's what it's become. And it's not even a new thing necessarily. This has been around for a long time, this mentality of when students don't know a particular thing, you don't teach them the thing. You just accommodate their unknowingness or their unknowingness. I'm not sure that's a word. You accommodate their inability to do the thing that used to always be there that they apparently can't do because they haven't been taught. So
like the path of least resistance, this is what we'll take, kind of.
Pretty much, yes. Because say for example with the time telling stuff, if a teacher's, and you know that this has happened, but if a teacher starts to actually teach them how to tell time, a student will go home and complain. And then the parent will call the school and complain and say, you're teaching my kid how to tell time. My kid knows how to tell time. And then, of course, it becomes a giant argument. Well, he or she doesn't know how to tell time because we have an analog clock in the class and I was asking what time it was and they didn't know. Well, they were just messing with you. They were just lying to you. And it's like, nah, I don't think they were. They don't know. So I decided to take time out to teach them how to tell time. And I found out that they don't know how to tell time. Well, that's not your business, that's my business. I mean, then it just becomes this giant argument about nothing rather than
Yeah.
just recognizing, okay, what don't they know? Let's teach them what they need to know. But it's easier, like you said, path of least resistance, it's easier to make the accommodation than it is just teach them what they need to know.
Yeah. But if there's anybody, I mean, out there, if there's any questions they have, I would be, my wife too, we would be willing to help anybody if there's, but I think once you start going down that path and you start doing everything, it's not as difficult as it may seem. And I've never heard anybody say they regret it too. I don't know if you have somebody after they do homeschooling.
No, I've never heard it.
Yeah. So,
and the other thing I've heard, and this is where I want to compliment you, your wife, and your kids, is that clearly iron sharpens iron. And when you openly said that you became closer as a family, both collectively and individually with one another within your relationships and behavioral changes and more positive attitudes and the whole thing, that right there is one of the things that I've heard most often when it comes to families and siblings who homeschool with one another and home learn with one another, is that's almost one of the night and day changes that happens. That if there was, like you said, everybody was stretched thin, there may have been some divisions. You're consistently wrestling with how other people, how your family's being treated either at work or at school or this, that, or the other. And then within a blink of an eye, it all stops. And you're around each other more often and you're communicating more often. That's what a family is supposed to be doing. And that's what government doesn't want. So.
And you, like you said, when they say there are kids or, our kids, the statement alone is they're trying to drive the wedge between the family and that's how, kind of like how you're saying, I think that's how the curriculum is set up too. And that's how the teaching is. But yeah, I wish we did this a long time ago. I mean, it's great, man. I don't know. I thank you for, your show. I think there was another guy, oh man, is it McDonald? What's the guy's first name? Remember he wrote that, the psychologist? He's out of California.
Yeah. Mark McDonald, I think.
Yeah, I remember listening to a bunch of his podcasts, and I remember, a psychologist, I think, and he was just talking about how the schools are set up and everything, and he's just like, pull your kids out because it'll be the best thing you ever do, and and I like even you're tipping people off to Jesse's podcast, which is a great one, which kind of like the self-reliance sort of thing. And I would say like that was a big influence on us with getting chickens and stuff and, and gardens. I think in the last 4 years, we built a huge chicken run, enclosed chicken run, an open chicken run, raised beds, greenhouse. We ended up, filtrating our water.
There you go.
In the fluoride out of our water, I think probably 4 years now. We got honeybees now. It's wild. So like, there's never a dull moment around here. I got about 60 pounds of honey in my garage right now. I was in there yesterday. It's but that stuff, hopefully, maybe the kids, maybe they do, maybe they don't, maybe they take an interest in that stuff. My one daughter is really good with like animals in general and everything. And, but yeah, it's great, man. I hope anybody out there that's on the fence, and I hope, I wish I came on earlier. I should have. I've just been wrapped up in my own head and stuff because I should have been more considerate that there's other people in our same situation around this time right now looking to decide if they should do this, and maybe that one little, whether it's a podcast or that conversation, maybe that's the one that puts them over the edge, to just jump in. And if that's you out there, just do it. So that's the kind of stuff I wish I heard anyway,
Yeah, I gotcha. And this is the month. I mean, this is the month when school opens up again, and no one's, most people aren't excited about it. Parents aren't excited about sending their children back always, and students themselves aren't excited about going back. But one quick suggestion I would have is when it comes to that email that you have to send your local school district, if you choose to homeschool and home learn, specifically, of course, with the Becker or any other program, is that a parent get on an AI system, and you simply type in, I live in this state. I'm going to be homeschooling my children for this school year. Basically just you ask the AI system to write you an email to your local school district and basically say what laws or references do I have to have within the letter to make them accept the letter, and then tell me about the process. But you can have an AI system write you the whole email. And it's real simple. I mean, like you said, in New York, it's the same way in Ohio. You don't even have to tell them how many hours you're spending on each subject. You just have to say, my students, my children are going to be learning these particular subjects. And we're officially unrolling from your school district. So that's that. And then they send you an email back and they say, okay, no problem. We'll unenroll them. And every single year you just send them the same email, and that's it. But yeah, I would suggest that any parent, again, just use an AI system. They're free. Just get on and tell them where you live and tell them what you want to do and tell them to write up the email for you, and they will.
Yeah, that's good. That's good advice.
Thank you for listening to American Education FM. Make sure and check out AmericanEducationFM.com for more information. Take care and God bless.